Okay,
Are we quorate?
yes, I'm sure we are.
Yeah, you are.
Yes, we're only missing Shardy, who's got sent apologies, and Margid. So only 2 down. Right, let's start this. First of all, apologies.
I have apologies just from Councillor Brindley.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest, apart from the fact that we're all council taxpayers, but we have dispensation, global dispensation for that. Any other declarations of interest at all? Nope. Okay. Moving on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of November. They were provided in the full council agenda of the 8th of December. Can I sign those off, please? Can I see a show of hands, please?
Are we voting? How are we voting? With our hands like that? Or...
Preferably if you can do the hands on the participants.
Yeah, electronic hands, please.
If you can. Right, we've got a full complement. Councillor Nagra has joined us. Councillor Nagra, we're just voting on the minutes of the meeting held on 24th of November.
Okay.
So we're just voting on it or not. So have you got that, Linda? Then I'll go for against.
Yeah.
All those against, please show. Oops.
Oh, hang on.
Sorry, my mistake.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
And
No,
Linda,
sorry.
Linda, I think I didn't vote either. So can I go back? Apologies.
Can we do
all those
4 again?
4, please. Can you vote?
4.
Councillor
All those
McCann, you need to lower your hand.
I thought he was doing it from there. Sorry.
Okay, all those.
No.
Lower hand.
Sorry, are we voting for now?
We're voting for.
Right, I'm going back to the beginning. I'm going back to the beginning because Councillor Nagra only just came in. So, and I didn't vote myself. So all those 4 accepting the minutes, please. Okay, got that, Linda?
Okay, yeah.
All those against, please show. Kevin, you got them? Yep. All those against, please show. And all those abstaining, please show. Okay, so that's 0 and 0.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we now move into the finance, item 4, the budgetary control on page 5. Deborah, do you want to say anything about it, please?
Not really, except to say total expenditure up to the end of December is at about just under 66%. I've tried to provide some explanation for the expenditure. So the highest one is the TCMI grant paid monthly and the community grants that have been awarded from that budget. In terms of income, the furlough income amounts to just over £47,000 and income from bookings is £85,000. That includes the TCMI expenditure.
Does anybody have any questions of Deborah?
No.
Councillor Nagra was first, then Councillor Chadwick.
Yeah, I want to ask, it's on page 5, line number 8, and on it there is a next to 7 1.8, it's written loan relake. What's this?
We borrowed some money, Councillor Nagra, to set up a new workshop down at the depot and to finish off the lake. And some funds were going also to Woodford Park Leisure Centre to refurbish the entrance area and the bit out the back that overlooks the football pitches, stroke cricket pitch.
Okay, and in next line, it's written sinking fund allocation. What's this sinking fund allocation?
The sinking fund allocation is the 80,000 that the town council allocates each year to Rathbones, who are building up a fund through investment to pay off the principal cost of the Oakwood Centre.
Okay, and police rent of police office is given by Woodley Town Council?
Yeah, we rent the police office to them.
Thank you.
So they pay us.
Yeah, they pay us.
That's income from them. Okay, Councillor Chadwick, you had your hand up.
Yes, actually, you've answered my question. I just wanted to ask if that sinking fund allocation is the usual amount.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, so we need to note that. Can I ask all those to put their hands up, please, to note the finance budgetary control? That's 4A. I'll remember to do it myself.
Oh, oh, can't get my hand up. Sorry.
Okay, so Councillor Gilder is voting for. You've got your hand up now electronically.
I managed, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. All those against, please show. And all those abstaining, please show. Thank you very much. We'll move on to 4B, payments. You've got it on page 6 of the agenda. Quite a few pages there. Are there any questions for Deborah on the content at all?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, yes. So shall I ask my questions?
Councillor Chadwick, you had a question.
Okay, thank you. Well, one thing is on page 6, it's a quarter of the way down, probably business stream, £67.69 water rates regarding the public toilet. Am I right in thinking that the usual rates are £200 per month on the public toilet, roughly?
Yeah, this is water rates. So the business rates are 200 and something, and this is the water rates. And I don't think that's for a month, but Kevin, I don't know if you know if I don't think we pay it monthly, do we?
No, we don't. I think that's
3 monthly, is it?
I think
quarterly.
It's a quarterly one.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, thanks.
Okay, if you've got any more questions, Councillor Chadwick? If not, I'll move on to Councillor Nagra.
Councillor Nagra, you need to raise your hand electronically or you can't be seen. Can you?
I haven't quite finished, actually. Shall I?
Okay, no, you carry on, Councillor Chadwick, and then Councillor Nagra, you're next.
Is there a change of tenant in the flat above?
Yes.
Okay, right, thank you. I suppose the only other thing I was going to say is, which we have mentioned this before, is the in both months is personal information, town centre manager's costs. It's just a bit vague, but maybe there's nothing.
Well, it's simply because it's the person's name who gets paid that amount of money working for the TCMI.
Oh, right. So it's sort of salary.
Yeah.
Maybe if it says salary, it might be clearer. Or not. Well, I don't know, but I just.
Yeah, I can have a look at that.
Okay.
It says refund. It's not a refund if it's salary.
Oh, sorry. Where's that then?
Well, what I'm looking at is doesn't say refund, but there might be salary.
Oh, sorry.
No.
So if you look at the towards the bottom of page 8, personal information, and then there's 3 of them, town centre manager's cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that was. Well, I suppose yes. I suppose it's not exactly salary if it's sort of ad hoc, is it really? It always looks a bit vague. That's all.
Well, it's simply because it's someone's name and they're employed by us, well, by the TCMI to do that work.
I guess it's GDPR rules, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but cost is wrong then, Deborah, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it should be pay rather than cost.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, if you could.
Yeah. Okay.
Clearer. Thank you. Okay, that's it for me. Up to page 9.
Thank you, Councillor Nagra.
Yeah, first of all, my right side screen of blank, so I can't see any option of raising hands. There is nothing on that, so that's why I'm doing this.
I can see you, Councillor Nagra, so.
Have you got participants, Councillor Nagra, down at the bottom?
1 second.
If you click on participants.
Yes, now there is that option.
Oh,
Thank
right,
you.
okay.
Yeah.
So please ask your questions, Councillor Nagra.
Yes, so my question is on that page 6, there is a date 26th November 20, and it's about that AYS Cleaning Contractors Limited and payment of 520.78. And then this one is different document. We will discuss it later on. I think this is revised budget 2021. On this, on page 19, there is also public toilet 604. Is it same or different?
I'm sorry, I really don't know what you're talking about. Page 19.
Can I, Councillor Nagra, can I ask you to remember that question when we get to the budget paper?
Okay.
And just focus on this. Otherwise, we'll all get confused.
No, I'm just asking because there is also payment of toilet, and here is also.
That's fine. Just hold that question.
Yes.
All right, until we get to the relevant section. Thank you.
On same page, page number 6, date it's 05/11/20. There is payment to Blendy and Blendy solicitors. November 5th, 20.
Yeah, professional fees, yes.
Yeah, yes. So is it for any special case or is it routine?
It's in respect of the roof at Woodford Park Leisure Centre.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Nagra?
Thank you.
Right. Okay. And then we have to approve.
Councillor Anderson has a hand up, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Anderson. Please go.
Thank you. Page 7, it's just really picking up on what Councillor Chadwick said earlier, and actually I'd read it and I assumed it was something else. So page 7, where it says the WTCMI refund, when it says WT refund a cancelled activity, is that because somebody booked something and paid us a deposit and we've paid it back?
Yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anderson, and apologies for not picking you up. So we also need to prove the following payments: the current account and imprest account numbers there. Can I have a show of hands, please, for those who agree? Okay, all those against, please. And those abstaining. Just asking the question, Councillor Nagra, you haven't voted at all on that. Abstain.
Yeah,
So,
because I didn't have any option at that time.
well, can you tell us what you want to do? Not vote, vote for, vote
Abstain.
against, or
Abstain.
abstain. Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, item 5, the Oakwood Centre update, page 10. And that's over to you, Kevin.
Thank you. Obviously, it's clearly a rather brief report and update. So just to note that as this centre remains closed at present, and that does include the cafe, who took the decision again this time that it wasn't going to be worth them opening for a takeaway service only at this time. We are continuing with the blood donation sessions, which is good for us, and then we've got those twice a month in January, February and March, and we've obviously been continuing with essential checks in the building, which we're required to do in terms of water checks, etc. In terms of the offices are obviously closed also, with staff traffic in and out of there at a minimum. And the last item there to do with COVID vaccination, I think Deborah's got an update which has come about since I did the report.
Yes, if I could just tell you that we met with some people from the network here doing vaccinations for this area. and they're very happy with the Oakwood Centre. And we've got the CCG people coming on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. And hopefully to agree that it's a good place to be. It's very accessible, and they were very pleased about that. And we've worked out a one-way system, which actually Alison had already worked out with the blood donors. It's going to be slightly different, but that's the way it'll work. So we're just talking about price, hopefully, if they agree to use the centre. And we're going to charge them probably on an hourly rate. But Linda, you don't need to minute that. I mean, this is for our information, really. So we're very pleased about that. And we think we can kind of manage the centre with the staff that we have on furlough coming in, plus other officers from time to time. Sometimes it might be a bit short notice when they're coming, because sometimes they don't know when they've got the vaccinations. So, you know, they'll give us a day's notice perhaps. But it's manageable, definitely manageable.
Can I ask a technical question, please,
Sure.
Deborah? Councillor Anderson is heavily involved in this, in NHS, etc. Would she need to retrospectively, I know we're not debating it, declare a personal interest or something?
I wouldn't have thought so, because Juliet, you're not in this area anyway, are you? So
I don't work for it, although I'm doing it nationally. I don't work for the CCG or a local GP. So no.
I just wanted to keep us clean. That's
absolutely. No, absolutely.
Okay, right. So if there's no other questions, I actually think that's good news. A great use for the Oakwood Centre. You know, it's perfect, I think. Okay, so that was just to note. We'll now then move on to item 6, the Risk Management Working Party. We've got a report on page 11. Well, I don't know who's going to present this.
No, because there's no councillors on this committee who are on.
Deborah or Kevin, really. Just to, there is a recommendation though we have to vote on though.
Yes, if I can just say, so the first item is the risk management strategy, and that's on page 13. And we've included, if you have a look on page 17, you can see right at the very end of the strategy, we've added an extra paragraph headed up current COVID-19 pandemic. And we've just felt that it was important to put something down there about the impact on the council, just at the end of that strategy.
Okay, so do we have any, I see Councillor Chadwick, you've got your hand up for a question.
Oh yes, it wasn't relevant to COVID though, so I don't want to break the flow.
Well, I think Kevin and Deborah have finished reporting, so now it's open to questions. So.
Okay, on page 11, item 5, third paragraph, it's just, it says, it's to do with the pay areas, and it says 3 monthly checks were made by the maintenance manager. But I think the relevant risk is PA03, and it says there'll be weekly checks.
Sorry, yes, they are weekly checks. The 3 monthly checks are the ones that are more in depth. Colin, who is the maintenance manager, he attended a course, Kevin, I can't remember quite what it was called, but he is able to do more particular checks every 3 months. The maintenance team do check every week, and then we have ROSPA who come and do annual checks every year, just so that we're kind of making sure that we are doing it properly.
Oh, excellent. I wonder if it might be, oh, well, never mind. I was going to say that's too pernickety. I was going to say it might be better to say quarterly, because I think the 3 monthly could mean 3 times a month. But anyway, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
Something to think about for future reference.
Yes.
Councillor Nagra, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I have few questions, but all those members who are members of this committee are not here today, so I will ask these questions during full council meeting.
Well, you could ask.
I think you better ask. You could ask Councillor Nagra. Do ask, because we may be able to answer them.
No, because I think there is a thin line between council staff and councillors. So it's related to those councillors who decided something or debated something. That's why I want to ask in full council meeting.
I don't think this won't appear on the full council agenda, will it, Linda?
Since this is
I suppose it'll be in the minutes, but we wouldn't put the full information, Councillor Nagra, in what goes to the full council. It will be the minutes of this meeting.
And like my point of view is that they debated something, they decided something, so they can answer.
Yeah, come on now.
I'm looking.
Well,
okay, if you absolutely want to keep it secret until full council, I think
No, if someone is, no one is here. If someone is here, there is nothing secret.
Well, no, your question is secret. I'm sorry. Your question is secret.
No, because they are not here. That's why. Otherwise, I want to ask.
We could find the answer to your question. You know, if it's that burning, obviously it isn't. That you can wait.
No, it's not very burning.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so there is a recommendation here.
Councillor Rowland has a hand up, Chair.
Sorry.
It was a point of clarity, Chairman, because I thought we were doing the recommendation rather than the risk register.
Well, we were actually doing the risk register.
Management strategy.
We're doing the minutes.
Risk management strategy.
Yeah, we're doing the report of the virtual meeting.
Yeah,
right?
but don't we have to take the recommendation before?
Yes, I'm just.
Risk register.
I'm trying to get to the risk management strategy, which is the first item, and there is no other. Oh, there's the resolve the risk strategy. So the risk management strategy is first, because that's on page 11, and the risk register is on page 12. All right, so I'm doing it in sequence.
Yeah, sorry, I thought some of the questions were on the risk register.
No, Councillor Nagra wanted to ask a question on the risk register, but he's decided that he does not want to ask that question.
But Councillor Chadwick did too.
On the risk register minutes.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry.
So she referred to the third paragraph, if you remember, the third paragraph of 5.
Yeah, but we hadn't gone past the recommendation yet.
Well, the process was we're looking at the minutes first. We finished the minutes. Now we move on to the first recommendation. Finish on that. We'll go to the second recommendation.
In that case, could I ask a question on the register?
Yeah.
On the register, on the first A3 page down at the bottom, risk SR 14, it mentions regular meetings of the urgency committee. I don't think the urgency committee's met for some time. When is the next meeting set?
There is not one. There's none set.
Okay, and there hasn't been one for some time?
Since December, November, December.
I think Councillor Rowland, when this was put together, we were still anticipating the meeting, but I can take that out if you would prefer that.
Well, I'm not quite sure how the risk is being monitored if the urgency committee isn't meeting.
Well, this SNR, the risk management working party, correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah, reports to this committee, and this committee therefore are monitoring, which is why you're asking the question. Because you're doing monitoring. It's the parent committee of all the subcommittee and working party that holds that working party and subcommittee.
I realise that, but Keith, it's the urgency committee that are monitoring this.
Well, it can't be. So it needs changing. It needs changing.
So
and I thank you for highlighting that. Deborah's already said she will change it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Any others, Councillor Rowland?
No, thank you.
Okay. One last round of any more comments before I go to the first recommendation, that the amended risk management strategy for 2021-22, that's Appendix A, is recommended for approval by Council. So it's a two-stage process. Can I have all those in favour, please raise your hand? Okay. Kevin, can you clear them down, please?
Yeah.
All those against? Okay. All those abstaining? Councillor McCann, I haven't seen a vote for you.
Yes, he has voted here.
No, he has. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so that's approved. That will turn up at the next full council meeting in February, I guess. Then the last one on this is that the risks register be presented to the strategy. And so I guess that's really just a note, isn't it, Deborah?
No, the register needs to be presented to members of full council as well.
Okay, so we have to approve it and then it goes to full council.
Yeah.
Right, all those in favour, please, on the risk register, notwithstanding the amendment that Councillor Rowlands talked about, please raise your hand. Okay, moving on. All those against? And all those abstaining? Okay, Linda, you've got that?
Yeah.
Good, thank you very much. So we now move on to item 7A. This is the charges for the proposed, this is for 21.
Sorry, Chairman, there's the disaster recovery plan as well. It's only to note, but we had to...
Sorry, you didn't put that in here to note. So.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So I'm sure everybody's read it.
It's for information.
Okay, so we've noted that. If you've got in, sorry, Councillor Chadwick first, then Councillor McCann. Okay,
thanks. It struck me that on page 4 of the disaster recovery plan, there's a list of key functions as our priorities to be recovered, and it doesn't mention services such as electricity and water and so on. But it does. But the services do come up later on in the disaster plan. There's contact info for them and so on. And I just wondered if services ought to be on the list. Really, they're all soft, that.
Yeah, I think if I can clarify that the ones listed on page 4 are essentially the key functions that the council provides. So rather than other issues or risks that might go wrong, so they were key services that we would continue to try and provide in the event of a problem. So there's services that we get, so our water, electricity, all that stuff is more to do with the disaster recovery actions that we would take. That makes sense.
Yes, it does. But there's also nothing about buildings. And maybe you could argue they're a function that you provide.
Yeah, that could be included in there.
Right, thank you. Just felt that there should be something to do with the bricks.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You finished, Councillor Chadwick?
I think so, yes.
Okay, Councillor McCann, please ask your question.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick questions. Do we currently upload our confidential and necessary information to a separate cloud externally from this authority? And if we do, who is it with? It's the first question.
Yes, we have a cloud backup, an offsite cloud backup. I can't remember the name of the service provider. We do it through our IT contractor, but there is a actually I don't think it's in the plan, but yeah, I can provide that. I don't have it handy, sorry, for the company that actually does the final storage.
Yeah, there would it be appropriate to have the name of who the cloud people are in your actual plan somewhere?
Yeah, it would.
So if you're not around, or if You've had an aircraft drop on you and
Yeah.
somebody else knows where to go.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The other one was about pandemic business interruption insurance. It says you currently have that at the moment. Is that correct? Or is this a new? If it's not new, will you be getting it? And what are the cost implications for the authority for introducing this?
Councillor McCann, can I ask which page you're looking at, just so I can look at the same bit?
I think it's
Absolutely.
page 17.
Towards the back of the page. Yeah,
17.
I think that rings a bell off the top of my head. 17.4 insurance. The last line on the first, it says
Yeah, right.
business interruption insurance.
We do have business continuity, business interruption insurance, and you've probably seen some instances in the news recently where a legal case was brought by smaller companies against insurance companies because they all had a bit of a master get-out clause, which meant that if the disease hadn't yet been identified when the policy was taken out, i.e. it's a new disease, which this was, then it wouldn't be covered. And that was a fairly blanket thing which occurred, and which included us as well. That was obviously the first thing that we investigated. Where that stands going forwards in terms of insurances, I believe that now that is an identified disease, that would be covered in future policies, depending on the wording. So when we get to that, we'll obviously that's going to be a key one for a lot of people.
I'm sorry, but the High Court ruling was you are insured. This is not, we're not talking about future pandemics. If you have that now, High Court ruling is you are insured, which means have you as an authority gone back to your insurers and asserted that the High Court ruling applies to you, and then you get your business interruption money, yes or no?
Sorry, I see what you mean. We haven't gone back to them yet. We will be doing that to see if that does still stand. It still depends on the exact wording of individual policies. But I think what happened with that legal case is that a lot of the blanket clauses that they tended to use, which might include ours as well, didn't stand up. So that'll be something to report back.
When will you report back to this authority the answer to those questions? Because bearing in mind, most business interruption loan policies are to the value of 10% of your turnover. Our turnover is nearly 2 million. That would be a substantial potential income through an insurance policy of £200,000. Could be even more. So I think it's something that this authority should be galloping towards the legal peoples and insurance companies saying, where is our money? Wouldn't you agree, Councillor Baker?
By the way, it was the Supreme Court, so the insurance companies don't have
Supreme
any.
Court, yeah, the High Court.
So the Supreme Court is the ultimate. So
Yeah.
I think Kevin has already said he's going to look into it and get back to us at the earliest opportunity. Is that fair, Kevin?
Yep.
Thank you.
And we won't wait for a meeting. I would suggest actually it's a piece of information you should circulate to all 25 councillors.
Yeah.
All right. So any more questions? If not, oh, Councillor Chadwick, you've got another one.
Yes, sorry, I should have asked earlier, but on page 12, under section 1.3, emergency scenario, loss of use access to the Oakwood Centre Council offices, I was just wondering, for working at home, do you rely on servers and so on that are in the Oakwood Centre? And supposing the Oakwood Centre was more or less wiped out, would you be able to work from home, sort of thing? I was just thinking what happened to the Wallingford council offices?
Yeah.
Got burnt down.
Yeah. As Councillor McCann mentioned, the question about the off-site backup, that's what necessitates that really. What we've got at the moment is a slight mix. So we've got some staff are able to log in remotely to the machines and the server in the offices. So some people are doing that, and that's backed up off-site automatically.
Right, all right.
A couple of us are using machines which are not networked to that and are maintaining a separate backup of that information that's on that particular machine here. Emails are done separately through the mail server and again backed up off-site.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, you're mindful of that situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, there's one other thing. Oh, blow it. Page 18, item 5.1, financial assessment. It says the DRT shall prepare an initial assessment of the impact of the incident on the financial affairs of the council. The assessment should include an appraisal of the loss of blah blah blah, as revenue and assets and so on. What I was wondering was, who would that be reported to?
I mean, the council, so through whichever committee was appropriate, so it would come through strategy and resources and to full council in the event of a catastrophe.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So can I move on to now, please, the charges? 7A, that was in the extra document that was provided, and it's page 5 on that document. The proposed charges there. Deborah, do you want to talk to it? I think they're all the same, no change, but
yeah, they are all the same, no change. Bearing in mind that obviously we haven't had much income anyway, or we've not been able to provide the services we usually provide. I think that my recommendation is that we keep the rates at the same rate that they were last year.
okay.
This year, rather. This year, sorry.
Has anybody got any questions on that, or can I move straight to the vote? I'm looking, I can't see any hands or raised hands.
Quite reasonable.
Councillor McCann.
Thank
McCann.
you. Yeah, I'm just waiting. It's not going green. Thank you. Just so to clarify what was just said, is this the ruling group's proposal or the clerk's proposal that there be no increase in any of the charges?
It is the clerk. It's the town clerk's recommendation, as all these numbers here are. We happen to support that, and I would hope that your party, the Liberal Democrats, would also support a freezing of those charges. We do not operate a dictatorial, the ruling party says it will be A or B. I'm sorry, Councillor McCann, I know you'd like it to be that way, but it's not. Any more questions, Councillor McCann?
Yes, absolutely, thank you. But it's just, I meant normal leaders of normal authorities will go to the officers, and officers will draft the report.
Excuse me, Councillor McCann. Excuse me, Councillor McCann.
I haven't finished.
No, your question, Councillor McCann, your question, Councillor McCann, is not relevant. It's an inappropriate question. You're asking about the interaction between the ruling party and the town clerk. So please, can you restrict your questions to the matter in hand, which is the charges that the town clerk here has recommended, please. So what is your question?
If you would please stop interrupting me while I'm interrupting you, that would be helpful. Thank you. My question to you is, don't you feel that this should be your recommendations, not the officers drafting points for you to agree? Because it looks like you're not only out of control, you have no control, and you're doing
Councillor McCann, Councillor McCann, you are making very objectionable statements, and if you do it again, I will take the action and standing orders that allow me to, which is to silence you. We are not talking about how the ruling administration works with the town clerk. We're talking about the charges that are in front of you. It's nothing to do with how the ruling administration works with the town clerk. You may want it that way, but please, let's concentrate and get the business in hand. If you don't have any more questions on this, I'm going to go straight to the vote. Right. All those in favour of freezing the charges, please show by raising your hand.
Oh,
Okay. Moving on to all those abstaining. And
Two.
sorry, yes, and
Is that?
that's all of them, isn't it? That's this, and just for
Abstaining.
completeness, all those against. Linda, you've got that?
Yeah,
That's,
got it.
it's agreed.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay,
Agreed,
thank
yeah.
you. Now moving on to 7B, which is the rest of the charges, the Leisure Services Committee. At the beginning of this has already been through and approved by the Leisure Services Committee. I think it was unanimously approved, if I remember, Linda, of all parties, all councillors unanimously approved this. Deborah, do you want to just confirm that it is a freezing of the charges for?
Yes, it is, and they appear on pages 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the enclosed charges booklet that you've got.
Okay, I wish to, since this has already come up from the Leisure Services Committee, I want to go straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
oh. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Wave your hand.
Yeah, there you go.
You're there. You're there.
That's
All
fine.
right. All
I'm
those.
sorry.
That's okay. All those against, please show. And all those abstaining, please show.
That's 3.
Okay.
That's agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Glad to see a nice bit of consistency within your party. Moving on to number 8, revised estimates. Excuse me. To consider report SR 421. It's the blue pages, page 18. In your
Councillor Nagra has his hand up. I don't know if it's a legacy hand or he's asking a question.
we're just moving. We've finished that item, Councillor Nagra. The vote finished that item, so we're now moving on to item 8. Okay, sorry. 8A, to consider report SR 421, the budget appendix, which is this one, the blue pages. And the first item is to look at, well, it's the leisure services, which are blue, and the planning and community committees, which is green, for 2020 and 2021. So, Deborah, I don't know if you want to very quickly say anything.
About the, well, I provided information in the report. Do you want me to go through it or?
No, just if there's
Okay.
anything in particular you think needs highlighting.
Just overall, income is anticipated to be about 51% of the original estimated income, which would have been £264,500. And by the year end, I think expenditure is likely to be 90% of the original nearly 3 million. So there's a list in the report of the savings or the unspent money, just so you can get an idea of the kind of thing that we've been able to save money on. Some things are slightly over, but otherwise we have tried very hard not to spend anything that we don't have to. In terms of income, that'll be about 129,000 under the original budget figure. And that is mostly due to the low use of the Oakwood Centre. Overall, at the year end, we're estimating that there'll be a net increase of 2,500 over the original budget.
Okay.
2021.
I see 2 hands. Councillor McCann. Councillor McCann, you're up.
Yeah. Yes, I know. Yes, I know. I'm waiting for it to go green. Okay. With excluding the money from the government that you've got back as furlough, how much is the council's income down? And can you confirm that you expect that income to be generated back on your projections for 2021 to 22? In other words, you're forecasting for no pandemic to go beyond April. Is that
No,
correct?
I'm not.
And is that the information
Well,
you're presenting here
I'm
today?
reporting on the revised budget estimates in this one. So it's report number SR 421.
So
Yeah.
can you hold your question,
So
please, Councillor
there's
Marcan,
another
until the next item.
There's there's another report about next year's figures. It's on page 20. It starts.
So can we not? Can we
Okay,
keep on
so
the
hold on
agenda
a
item?
second.
Councillor
Hold
McCann,
on.
sorry to interrupt you, but can
Hold
we just
on
keep
hold
on
a-
this
hold
agenda
on a
item
second, please.
and not move to the next agenda item? Please?
Hold on.
Hello, I'm just
Hold on a
asking you.
second, please. Thank you. The figures I asked, the first part of the question was, what was the amount of money difference from your forecast for this year, excluding furloughing?
Yeah, this report
That
excludes
was my
furlough.
first half of the question.
This, I didn't understand you to have said that, Councillor McCann. This report on page 18 and 19 is purely the figures. It doesn't include any furlough figures. If you look on the budget summary at the beginning of your book, beginning of the revised budget estimates and budget estimates for next year, I've separated out the furlough and it's highlighted in red. So they're not included in the figures that for the normal operations of the council, as it were.
Okay. That's because what I've been getting a bit confused about is I'm reading two different areas and I'm trying to work out what the actual difference between your forecasted income, your actual income is.
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't
And
think it would. Sorry, I was just going to say I didn't think it'd be helpful to include furlough in the reports because they would shift it in a different direction, which wouldn't be helpful.
Okay.
Have you got any more questions, Councillor McCann, on just the expected outcome on 2021? Okay, can you hold your questions on the, because I'm sure you've got lots, onto the next section when we get into next year's budget. Right, any other questions? I can't see any hands up. So this is 8B. We need to consider those recommendations. I'm going to go straight to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Aye.
Okay. All those against, please raise your hands.
None.
All those abstaining.
Three.
Okay, thank you very much.
Three.
So now I want to do the recommendations on page 19. I would like, if I can, subject to your agreement, take all three recommendations as one. If you have an issue with that, please wave your hand or something. Otherwise, I'll take them as one. I'll just give you a few seconds to do that. I can't see any negative responses to that. Okay, so the recommendations there, note the contents, approve the allocation of any balances remaining in the legal and professional expenditure to an earmark reserve, and we approve the revised budget estimates for 2020-21. All those in favour, please show.
Five.
Okay. All those against, please show.
None.
And all those abstaining. There we go. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the next section, which is 9A. Consider the report SR 521, which refer to the same budget appendices that we've been looking at, but this time it's for the next fiscal year. So, Deborah, do you want to highlight anything on the?
Just to say that, thank you, Chairman, sorry. Expenditure in the next year is likely to be just over £17,000 higher than the revised estimates for this year and £109,000 lower than the original 2021 budget estimate. I won't go through everything. The only thing I want to draw your attention to is that there's an allowance of 6,500 in democratic costs for election costs, and obviously that, if there are elections in May, that would be spent then, and it may be that the council has to then raise a further 6,500 to put in the fund to build up for the 2023 elections. I mean, other than that, there are no funds allocated to the capital programme. We've managed to lower phone costs. That's something I should have mentioned. And also to tell you that I understand that business rates will remain the same next year as well. So I've kept those in as the same figure. With the WTCMI, you'll notice in the the budget estimates that there's just a couple of balancing figures in that at the moment. And that's because I'm waiting until tomorrow for the TCMI hopefully to agree their budget, which I can then put in, and it will be zeroed off either by reserves going into the reserve or coming out of their reserve that the council's holding on the behalf of the TCMI. We'll reduce capital and projects budget by 1,622 because we've paid off the loan on Woodford Park that we had. In terms of income, the figures anticipate an increase of just under £19,000 on the revised income. Higher income will depend on how much the pandemic will continue to impact on activities at the Oakwood Centre. And all in all, I think net expenditure will be £928 higher than the original 2021 budget estimate and about 1,600 over the the revised 2021 estimates. I've tried to be really prudent about how much we might get in. I can't see us recovering to have people coming and using the Oakwood Centre, for example, to any great extent for at least 6 months. I may be wrong, but I think I think recovery will begin at the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of people spending money.
Councillor Rowland, I'm going to go to Councillor McCann first. I hope you don't mind, because he did raise a question in the previous agenda item on this agenda item. So Councillor McCann, you're up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've got 4 or 5 questions on this item. You predict before I do that, the clerk has indicated that she expects our income to be reduced for the next 6 months in the coming financial year. Yet your projected income for your projected spend does not reflect any of that shortfall. This year's budget, you saved, depending how you add it up, you saved about £170,000 worth of monies. You're looking to withdraw £122,000 from the general fund, and in the same report you're expecting to withdraw £111,000 from the general fund next year, totaling some £400,000, maybe £500,000 worth of loss of money over a 2-year period. Don't you think it's a little bit short-sighted of this council to propose a budget on projected income and expenditures where you've already undermined that forecast by saying we don't expect any income to be on those past year's numbers for at least 6 months? It drives coach and horses through the whole budget process, unless the ruling group have already found another £170,000 in cuts in services that haven't been identified in this report. So my question is, isn't this report actually misleading when the numbers on income don't actually add up? The amount of monies that we spend have not been reduced in order to facilitate that difference. And isn't it misleading to the public to say that they can have services at the same price, but not actually get any money from it? I just find it distasteful that the ruling group are going to pretend that it's business as usual, while at the same time raiding the piggy bank this year, next year, and they don't even have a plan in place to implement refunding that piggy bank should another pandemic come along. Thank you.
As usual, a nice political statement, Councillor McCann. I'll let Deborah.
There was actually five.
I will let Councillor McCann, please. I let you speak. You should let me speak. Right. I will leave the town clerk to address your issues about saying that her numbers for incomes, etc., are wrong. Okay. I think that is a very distasteful comment, and it's an unprofessional comment from you, Councillor McCann. Now, in terms of reserves, I'm sure you're aware that the bulk of our residents, when they responded in the consultation, when they responded on social media, all said, almost without exception, that you should use reserves as a first port of call when you have a shortfall. Now, the Audit Commission, or whatever they're called these days, actually have guidelines, and the guidelines tell you what your minimum reserves should be. The minimum reserves are, from memory, about 300,000. Through the prudence of both the town clerk and her team and the decisions made by this ruling administration, year after year after year, we managed to put aside a significant amount of money extra than we needed to in general reserves. We did that because we anticipated that something exceptional could happen. And if it did happen, we could actually pay for the shortfall without raising council tax astronomically high, even though residents have actually voted significantly to have 20, 30 and 40% increases. That is called good financial management. And I find it very objectionable that you're suggesting that this ruling group is playing games. You might do it, but we don't. So on that note, I will pass over. You can laugh, Councillor McCann. There are people watching this. There are people watching this, and you will feel the comeuppance when they see your approach. So, Town Clerk, can you address the accusation of Councillor McCann that your income numbers aren't correct? They don't match what you say you're going to do, please. Thank you.
I think the income numbers, in terms of, because we're only talking about the Strategy and Resources Committee here, so that relates largely to the Oakwood Centre. That's where we get most of our income from, underneath the Strategy and Resources Committee. So I'm estimating that perhaps we'll get another extra 19,000 on what we managed this year, and I think that is possible. But I don't think anybody could tell you what's going to happen next year, because actually we don't know. I don't recognise the very large figure you gave me of funds that have been used to fund expenditure in or out of the general reserve. Well, it's out of the general reserve, obviously. So I wasn't quite clear about what that number was, Councillor McCann.
Okay.
The number I'm talking about is on page 23, where you say you're going to reallocate £122,000, and on page 24 where you're going to reallocate 111. It's your report.
Well,
we are not on that agenda
we're
item
not
yet,
on that
Councillor.
agenda.
Please, Councillor McCann, please follow the agenda.
No,
Please follow the
I
agenda
am.
and wait your turn. So hold that question and you can answer, ask it again. I'm not yielding to you because you were asking a question on the next agenda item. So on that basis, I'm going to move to Councillor. I am going to move.
Both
Councillor,
linked.
Can you mute Councillor McCann, please, Deputy Town Clerk, and we'll go to Councillor Rowland for her questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions. One is regarding the application to the PWLB about deferment or loan holidays of our mortgages and loans. Have we had a reply?
Actually, I have discussed this with the leader of the council, and I've withdrawn the application.
Okay. Can you tell me why?
Yes, because I was concerned that they might all of a sudden just put it on our, just stop our loans being paid, and we'd end up not knowing about it. And I still was really not clear about what the terms and conditions were. They hadn't corresponded with me or anything. In fact, I was surprised to get a response from my email, which I did get yesterday actually, and they confirmed that they'd stopped looking at it. I don't think they'd even started, to be honest with you.
I'm quite pleased about that, because as part of my role in another place, I've been talking to people about payment holidays, and they're not as good as they look.
Yeah.
My second question is about the letter that we had from Robert Jenrick, saying that principal authorities had been given cash to help out towns and parishes that were suffering. Have we written and asked the Borough Council for a portion of that money?
We had written, and we wrote that when we received the letter from Robert Jenrick. I think it was in April, May sometime.
It was ages ago, yeah.
Yes, it was.
And I know you'd had a meeting with them.
I had a meeting with Bob Watson, who is somebody who works in Graham Eber's the organisation, but that nothing was forthcoming.
But and have we not written, now we know the outcome of our accounts and how dire that is, have we not written and formally asked for some of that money?
No, but I can do.
Well, if we don't ask, we definitely won't get.
Yeah, I mean, we have asked, and we've asked again. And I think the second meeting that we had, there was some discussion about whether we could have a grant or a loan, but actually a loan is ultra vires unless you've got a real problem as a parish council and you're going to raise it in the precept to pay the principal authority back. So we can't take a loan from the borough council.
A loan doesn't really help. It just gets us further into debt.
Yeah,
but I don't see why we shouldn't have a portion of that money as a grant.
I mean, if the committee would like me to write, I can do that.
Well, there's nothing to lose, is there?
I can give you a quick update, Councillor Rowland.
Please don't bother. Don't bother updating us.
Don't be so rude, Councillor McCann. You really are. No, so Councillor Rowland, I agree with you about the loans. I think it was always a step of last resort. So I agree totally with you. In terms of the new money, the 1.6 million, which I think you're talking about, that's come through, what, in the last 3 or 4 weeks? I'm aware that Councillor John Kaiser, who's the Executive Member for Finance over in the Working Borough, is composing a letter to send out to all towns and parishes requesting, basically asking, do they need help? And I believe, I haven't seen a copy of the letter, but I believe there will be a lot of it about reserves. So if you've got a lot of reserves, you would be expected to use those first within the confines of the Audit Commission protection before you get it. But frankly, it's too late. We're setting our budget tonight. We're setting our precept tonight. And if we do get any money, it's a bonus, and I'm being open and honest with you. I'm not happy with this. We started this in May. It's the whole discussions and negotiations, and we've got nowhere. And I'm quite happy to say that. And as you know, this is a public meeting, so I'm saying it publicly. And I know your party has been saying it as well. So we're off the same hymn sheet. Okay,
Yep.
right. Can we move on to the recommendations, please? Unless there's any other questions? Nope. So the recommendations are on page 21. That members note the content of the report and recommend the proposed budget estimates for 21-22 as set out in the budget appendix, which is that document, be approved. All those in favour, please show.
Aye.
Okay, all those against, please show. And all those abstaining, please show. Okay, thank you very much. That's passed. So we now move on. Oh, someone's got a dog. So, so that was 9A, that report. We need to do the recommendations from the other committees, which is Leisure Services and Planning. So we need to approve those. As I said before, they've all been through the standing committees. And again, I think both of them were unanimously agreed by all parties. So I want to go straight to the vote on that, please. All those in favour, please show.
I don't know which
You didn't take my hand down.
Okay.
You have not taken my hand down from the last vote.
You can
Can
take
you
it
clear
down
them
yourself.
down, please, Kevin? Please clear them all down, right? They're all down. This is 9B, which is the budget estimates for 21-22 from the Leisure Services Committee and the Planning and Community Committees.
Excuse me, Chair. Chair, I asked questions on this item specifically. You said you would wait because you were dealing with pages before that.
We're talking about 9C.
Were relevant to 23. I was talking about pages 23 and 24 in the budget process, which you said
we
you
haven't
would
got
wait
to that
once you
yet,
had moved
Councillor
on. Can I
McCann.
answer my question?
We haven't got to that. We're on 9B. That is 9C. It'll be the next one and you'll be the first to be called. So can I go back, please? All those in favour of the budget estimates from the Leisure Services and Planning Community Committees, please raise your hands.
Aye.
Okay, all those against, please raise your hands.
None.
And all those abstaining, please show. Yep.
3.
Thank you very much. Now we will get through to 9C, which is on page 22. Deborah, can you give us an overview, please?
Yes, I can. What you'll see on page, 22 to 24. So I've provided the information about the 4 columns that you've got. You've got actual expenditure from 1920, which were published in the accounts for that year. Then you've got the original budget estimates in the purple column. This is page 1 of your budget book. And then you have the 2021 revised figures, which is the light green column. And then the darker green column presents the proposed budget for 21-22 and anticipated reserves. Further on, you'll see I've got some figures for 22-23 and 2023-24. And if I can just say, they're not a fully produced budgets, but they're a way of looking at perhaps how we can gradually move on from what will be probably a difficult year next year, but get back to something like what we had before. But we'll know a bit more about that the nearer we get to those years. The government's announced that it will not be applying the referendum principles to the local council sector again this year. So at the bottom of page 22, there's some information about how the precept calculation is worked out. And a little bit about the change to the council tax benefits and the fact that for some time we got a grant from the Borough Council, but we haven't had a precept support grant since 2021. So that's a bit more extra money that we had to find last year. And obviously it's a gap again this year. The draft 21-22 tax base for Woodley has increased from 10,659 to 10,806.8. So the new tax base includes an additional 147.8 bandy equivalents in the parish, and that anticipates new homes being built in the town and becoming occupied. You'll see on page 23 under reserves, there's information about the general reserve and the impact that that has had. So you'll note that in this financial year, we are having to allocate nearly 123,000 from the general reserve to support the 2021 expenditure. We have carried out an exercise to get some more reserves, to release some earmarked reserves, and you'll see that's that £87,506 at the bottom almost of the light green column. Earmarked reserves totaling 574,344 as at the 31st of December 2020 are listed on page 2 of the budget appendix. So just over the page from the overall preset budget summary. Community infrastructure levy, we've had receipts of just over 100, well, nearly £126,000, and we've used those to fund various projects. Some have been spent and some haven't. In terms of the budget estimates for 21-22, we're estimating expenditure of a net expenditure of £1,404,448, which is about 78,500 on the revised figure for 2021, and an increase of 169,000 on the original 2021 budget estimate. So the expenditure includes the capital loans, which have reduced, as I said, for following the repayment of the loan on Woodford Park. Income furlough is estimated at 50,000, and the value of the council's investment portfolio was 1.835 million. On page 24, there's a list of the projects that we hope to carry out in the coming year. And finally, the precept 21-22, it's proposed that the precept level be set at 1.293034 for the 21-22 financial year. It's an increase of nearly £90,000 on last year's precept figure, and is raised as a result of the increase in the tax base and the increase in the bandy property charge. The bandy property charge will be £119.65, and the figures show that we will still anticipate at this point allocating £111,000 from the general reserve to support the council's planned expenditure next year. That's based on the prudent figures that have been put into the budget.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Councillor McCann, at long last you can ask your question. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you. Isn't this budget actually misleading? Because in one hand, the officers are reporting and forecasting that income will not return back to normals for up to 6 months, while at the same time you're reporting expenditure should stay the same and nobody is cutting any cloth to suit your budget. You're potentially £500,000 out if things go badly next year. In my opinion, you're misleading the public by pretending you can dip in to the emergency reserves twice and not have a plan to regenerate them, well, your own officers of the council are predicting a shortfall in income for possibly the next 6 months. Isn't this misleading and potentially leaving financial problems for this council and its residents that which it serves? I think it's not fair to turn around and say to the public, on one hand, we are doing a good job, then you tell them we're not going to get as much money and we're not going to identify any savings at all. Those savings could be the same as it. Sorry, I haven't finished. Those savings could be anywhere from £100,000 to £190,000, depending on which programmes, capital programmes and other programmes which could be delayed. Now, you can use capital monies for one-off revenue expenditure, which I'm sure Councillor Baker will be more than familiar with rules for local authorities, but you're showing nothing in the previous item, which is setting out your budget estimates. Your workings are showing clearly £100,000 to £150,000 forecast shortfall based on assumptions that you're going to get £50,000 from the council, 6 months less of income, and you're going to raid the piggy bank. Now, if this is what the Conservatives think is good management, my goodness, we really should be scared of what incompetent, inept Conservatives can deliver.
Councillor McCann, could I just respond to that and say that in terms of the planned projects, a lot of the monies that are allocated are specifically for that purpose or for the purpose of a capital project. So it actually would be quite difficult to do anything different with those funds.
And SIL is only allowed for capital projects. And you'll find that all projects have been postponed indefinitely. But Councillor McCann, I know you've made a political point. I hope that you and your colleagues, when we get to full council, will provide an alternative budget, an alternative precept change, an alternative general reserves levels. It's very easy to criticise from the wings. So I'm looking forward to seeing your alternative budget. Residents clearly told us in the consultation on social media, they wanted as low a precept as possible. 0 they wanted. They wanted us to use general reserves, which is what we're doing. And they wanted to keep services, which is what we're doing. So residents are getting what they asked for. I'm looking forward to seeing your alternative budget in February. On that, if there's no more questions, I will now move on to the recommendations, which is on page 24. I would like to take them all on block, unless I see anybody waving at me that they wanted to do that. I'll give you a few minutes. Nope. Right. So all those in favour of the 3 recommendations, noting the contents, proposed budget going to the council, and the proposed precept level. All those in favour, please show.
Aye.
Okay. All those against, please show.
None.
All those abstaining, please show.
3.
Thank you.
So that's agreed.
All right. So the next bit hopefully is less controversial. 10A, community grants, page 25. This is a late entry. Although our rules have said it's gone past the time for application, it's a late entry. We need to consider it. So I'll throw it immediately over to any questions, or can I go straight to the vote about whether we approve this or not? No, I think we can go straight to the vote. All those in favour of approving this late application, please show by raising your hand.
6.
Okay. All those against?
There's 7 there, Linda, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. 7.
All those against, please show. And then all those abstaining, please show.
That's 1.
Very much. Item B on this 10.b is to review the guidelines on page 26. Does anybody have any comments or recommended changes on these guidelines? The community groups guidelines were last reviewed or last approved in 2012, and the individuals were last approved in 2018. Councillor Chadwick, you've got your hand up.
Just wanted to confirm that the text on pages 26 and 27 is the same as in the previous years, is it?
I believe so.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I go to approve those guidelines? And Linda, if you can update the date of approval to reflect today's date, or assuming it gets approved. All those who agree with those, please show your hands.
Six.
Okay, all those against? And all those abstaining?
Two.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 11, projects scheduled on page 28. That's down to you, Kevin, Deputy Clerk.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Most of those are the same as previously, except one item which has been added, which is item 3 at the top of page 29, which refers to the installation of a new electrical supply to the maintenance yard. Shortly before Christmas, we had a loss of power to the site, which subsequently we've investigated and found to be a cable fault somewhere between the leisure centre and the yard, which is where it is supplied from. That cable runs right underneath the 3G pitch, which is terribly helpful in terms of finding where a break might be or fixing that. Through speaking with Southern Electric about how best to do that, we have come up with a project to run a new supply, avoiding the leisure centre completely, so that we can avoid some of the problems we've had with that, because the leisure centre electrics are old, and that's an issue for another day. Actually, there will be another project which will come online at some point when it's come to council for consideration. But to run a new supply from the substation next to the tennis courts out across the sports pitches along the side of the 3G pitch and down to the yard, to supply the yard and the street lighting that is down in that area. So we have had that costed now, and I need to get a report to full council to consider putting some money towards that. So it's very frustrating and a step back. However, the solution will take us forward and future-proof the site as well, because we'll make sure we've got capacity in that supply going forward.
Okay, have we got any questions? If not, this is to note. Bless you, whoever sneezed. If not, we'll move on to item 12, which is the service level agreement. Deborah, do you want to say any words, particularly about the middle paragraph?
Only to say that just around the corner, service level agreement with the town council finishes on the 31st of March 2021. And I've spoken with one of the directors of just around the corner, who've confirmed they'll continue some level of detached youth work following the end of the service level agreement, and will liaise with the community youth partnership and the town council on any important issues that may arise, because we do have the community youth partnership through which we could address things as well.
And that's at their cost, not at the town council?
Yes, at their cost, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McCann, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got 5 questions on this item. Your first paragraph on A says we have been continually paying quarterly to this organisation. Have we made any deductions for the fact that we have been in lockdown almost about 4 months, 5 months, and That's the first one. If not, why not? Second one in the second paragraph is, if they're going to be doing more work, will this cost us anything, as in Woodley Town Council? Third one, paragraph B, what does detached youth work actually mean? And if they're going to be providing, the fourth question is, if they're going to be providing a service beyond the 31st of March, at what potential cost to us? And the fifth question is, will they be compliant with the Equality Act while they are representing the authority after the 31st of March? Thank you.
Can I ask answer a few of those? First of all, I think the ones where you were talking about any cost of Woodley Town Council, I've already answered. Unfortunately, you obviously didn't hear, or you forgot, because I said that the extra work they're doing has at no cost to the Town Council. In terms of any reduction for COVID, Jack actually made a suggestion to not draw down any more payments because of the COVID situation. The clerk put that to the relevant committee. The relevant committee did, and strongly argued by your own members, actually said, no, we want them to continue. So the clerk's recommendation, which was what Jack had offered in writing, on a letter, actually was what you were talking about, but it was overturned by the committee, which is their right, which is why we continued paying. So in terms of the other questions, if I haven't answered them, I'll pass them over to Town Clerk. If you could fill in some of the details about that meeting, was it Leisure Services meeting, I think?
It was, yes.
Yes, you actually said no to that.
Yeah, in terms of the question about what is detached youth work, it's about going out and about and meeting up with young people and then providing them some support if they need that. In terms of proving service, if providing the service, well, they won't be, after the 31st of March, they won't be providing a service. Councillor McCann, they won't be providing a service via the Town Council. They'll be doing that work themselves, but they will keep links with the Community Youth Partnership, obviously, and the Council. And in terms of being compliant with the Equality Act, well, if we're not paying them as part of the service level agreement,
it's not our problem.
We won't be. No, I didn't say it wasn't our problem. I was saying that we won't have a right to carry out any a process of making sure they are compliant with the Equality Act.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's quite clear. Can I have a couple of follow-ups, please?
Please.
Thank you. So effectively what you're saying is Jack can go about doing whatever work Jack does, but not being paid by Woodley Town Council from the 31st of March. It will have no cost implications to us. They will not be representing the Town Council, but they may inform us as and when things go along that might be of interest to us. If that's what the officers are saying, then are we going to go out to contract to find another supplier of a similar type of service to that which Jack had currently provided? Or do we as a council no longer feel that that's a necessary facility that this council should pick up?
So Councillor McCann, could I just let you know that members of the Community Youth Partnership will be meeting next week, and other members of council. Councillor Rowland's coming, Councillor Baker is coming, and I think Councillor Al-Sanjari will be coming as well to discuss what a future service level agreement fit for purpose would look like. And that's going to be facilitated by the person who drew up the original terms of reference for a new service level agreement, but with the pandemic things are very different now for young people. And so some thought has to be given to that. And so that's the purpose of the meeting next week.
Can I also add, Councillor McCann, is that in the budget, there is, that we've just approved, there is an allocation of
Yes,
slightly
there is.
inflated cost this time around. So it is anticipated that some form of service will be provided. The tender document will go out, but it's a timing issue. We won't be able to have anything going from April the 1st, unfortunately. But as soon as possible, that will go forward. Probably take a 2 or 3 month tendering process, I'm guessing, but it's not going to be like a day. And yes, it'll come in. But the commitment is there. It's in the budget we've just signed off to fund some organisation to provide this sort of service. Okay.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question, seeing as how you're answering that? Is, will this service level agreement be fully compliant with all the legislation necessary to fulfil the obligation of the contract? In other words, the Equality Act, Human Rights Act, all these acts, will it be fully compliant? And will the leader of the council give that assurance that any service level agreement will be fully in alignment with the legislation currently enforced?
Well,
thank you.
I don't know all the details of the current legislation, so I'm not in a position in any shape or form to give you that commitment. But that's why we have paid officers, paid professionals who know these things. So I'm going to ask for that commitment from the professionals who know a hell of a lot more than I do. The town clerk, can you give that commitment, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Right. So moving on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nagra, you've got your hand up.
Yes, sorry. I just want to ask you a question. You just mentioned about offer of suspension of payment by just around the corner. And two questions, in fact. Were you supporting that suspension of payment?
There was a Leisure Services Committee and I would have voted for it.
Okay, so you are saying that your party members, they went against your opinion?
No, what I'm saying is I personally
no,
would
I
have
mean,
supported it. I
no,
can't, excuse me, Councillor
yes,
Nagra,
yes, yes,
I cannot answer for the rest of my members on that committee. I'm sure if you look up the records, you can find out how it was voted on. But I can't, we don't operate a dictatorial system within our party. People make up their own minds, unlike other committees. Well, actually they don't, because anyway, I won't go there. So
yeah, I know this very well. So if I understand correctly from your sentences, that Leisure Committee in which your party members are in majority, that committee rejected this offer.
What I'm saying is I can't remember what the numbers were. Okay, you need to look at the minutes. I can't remember the numbers. All right, but I know that the Liberal Democrats, for instance, I do know that they rejected the offer.
Okay, but they can't. But they can't decide because they are in minority in that committee.
It doesn't matter who can decide. It's what your view is, to be perfectly honest. So you vote the way you vote, the way your conscience. Well, if you vote, but certain councillors never vote whatsoever, so they probably don't have a conscience.
No, as far as my poor knowledge is concerned, decision is made majority minority. Who is in majority, that will be accepted.
So I've answered your question. You asked me personally, and I've answered it. So we'll move on, please. Councillor Rowland. You're muted.
May I suggest that members mute themselves if they're not being called to speak? It's really disturbing to have noises off of coughing and mutterings in respect for each other if we mute ourselves when we're not speaking, and then you can remind us to unmute when we want to speak.
Good point.
Thank you.
Always an experienced professional there, keeping us to the proper rules of debate. Thank you. Okay, so do you have another question, or have you finished, Councillor Rowland? Okay, so moving on to item 13, to note that the November's neighbourhood seal proportion transferred to us, it reports a potential of 61,576, and B, to note that we've received 10,505 and a further 44,852 are to be invoiced but not received. So I'd like to take A and B if there's any questions on those, because I'd like to get to C. If not, I'd like to move on to 13C. Now 13C is a couple project proposals that have come from Wokingham Borough, where they wish us to use some of our hard-earned seal money to fund borough projects. I will give you my own personal view is no, simple as that. It's our seal, we need it. We don't have much money, but I'll throw it open for any questions, debate. Okay, Councillor Rowland.
For goodness sake, I'm getting over the shock that I agree with you.
We
I'm
do
going to have
sometimes.
to have oxygen, I think. I was going to speak and say on their bikes, but you said it for me. Thank you, Keith. On
You're
their
welcome.
bikes.
Or electric car. Councillor McCann. Councillor McCann, we're just waiting for you. You're on mute. You're
Right,
okay.
am I off mute?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Again, it sticks in my throat, but we came to this same conclusion the last 3 times the Borough Council asked this council for money to do stuff that it wanted to do in our patch with our money. I would go one step further. I would say no under no circumstances, but I would actually send a letter to the Borough Council informing them that in the future that they no longer ask us to spend our money, they can spend our money on our behalf, and that they just send us our money instead of wasting our time. You used to be quite important up there. I don't see why it shouldn't be too difficult for the Conservative group to turn around and say to them, stop asking us if you could spend our money where you want it. It's hard enough to get money that should have been here years ago, let alone sitting here listening to the drivel and swill that comes from the Tories in Wokingham. So the answer is no, go away, but we should actually turn around and say to them, and please stop asking us to spend our money where they want it. Now, you're the Conservative leader, you're on the borough, why don't you tell the borough exactly what we don't want to hear from them again in the future?
Right, Councillor Gilder.
Yes, I was absolutely gobsmacked when I heard about this, because they collect lots of money from our car parks. We don't see any money coming from them. I am absolutely furious that they think that they have the right to even ask us when they know that we're struggling with, with taking money out of our reserves. I just think it's absolutely, well, I just can't believe it. I can't believe that they are so stupid to think that any councillor in Woodley of any party would agree to them Woodley giving money back to Wokingham when they already take enough money of us in council tax. So no, I definitely think we should not give them any money at all.
Thank you, Councillor Gilder. I think I know which way this vote's going. Councillor Chadwick, your turn. You're on mute. You have to unmute.
Yes, it's just I mean, I feel these two tasks do need to be done, and if we're not going to agree to use SIL money for this, do we have an approach or an understanding of how we are going to get EV points and good signage for cyclists? And I don't say we need to worry about that doing it this year because it's a very difficult year, but do we have an understanding about how these things are going to be done in the future?
In a word, no. I don't know how the WBC thinks on this, but we've removed, or we voted on a budget that's had a full removal of our regular £45,000 on capital budget for the coming year. We've had to do that because of the position we are in financially. We have got the only other avenue for us to do capital projects is our SIL money. And I will jealously guard that because we need that to do things on Kevin's to-do list that has to be done. And that can be done through our SIL money. So even if we wanted to help them, we won't have the money because it's going to Kevin for fixing the roof and other things. So you know, yes, we would like it, but I'm afraid, you know, they've got 9.5 million in their reserves, for instance, projected at the end of this fiscal year, something like that, 9.5 million. So they should be able to find a way, or it just doesn't happen. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to put a proposal that the answer is no. Thank you very much, but no. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Just waiting for one more councillor. Councillor Chadwick, are you voting? No, okay. So now I'll go to all those against.
That's one.
Okay. And that's everybody, isn't it, Linda?
Yeah, no abstention.
Okay, so we're not doing that. Final point, just to note, Appendix 13 gives you the SIL document stuff. Yeah, page 33. Just having a very quick look. Yep, that's detail. 14, future agenda item and publicity and website. Do we have any suggestions for future agenda items or publicity and website? I'd like to get on to the last piece before 10 o'clock. Councillor Nagra.
Yeah, I have only one question, and I request Deborah, like either she can send reply by email or we can discuss it in next future meeting. There is a section order 5 and subsection F. It explains the right of chairman of any committee to give vote. I can't find any rule which explains that chairman of any committee can participate in debates. So I will be thankful to Deborah if she can tell me, is there any rule which explains this?
You're muted, Deborah.
Councillor Nagra, I think I responded to you and gave you a reference in the standing orders.
No, I am asking you this question first time. I will repeat it like it's in section order 5 and its subsection is F. If you can check.
It's about voting.
Yeah, it's about voting. It gives a right of vote to chairman of any committee. So I'm asking, what are rights of chairman of any committee to participate in debates? Like suppose I present a motion in any committee and there is a rule which explains that chairman of any committee can give vote. So is there any rule which explains that chairman can participate in debates?
It says, I can go straight to this.
Yeah,
It says a chairman of a committee may give an original vote on any matter put to the vote. An original vote is a vote.
No,
So it's
I'm not
quite
asking.
clear. No, hang on.
Yes.
It's quite clear the chairman can vote on a debate in their committee, full stop. If it's equal, so it's say 10 votes for and 10 votes against, the chairman has what's called a casting vote. So in that scenario, the chairman gets 2 votes. One as an original vote, one as a casting vote. Okay?
This is not my question.
He's not.
You talked about
I'm
5F,
not saying-
and I just-
He's not asking that, Keith.
I'm not asking
Keith,
this.
Keith,
Okay.
what he exactly.
What I am saying
He's asking you.
Yes, Councillor McCann.
What he's asking you, Keith, and the clerk, there is nothing in the agenda that says the chairman has any right to speak. I believe that is the point he's asking. You
Yes.
have the right to silence people. You have the right to complain about people. But what I think he's asking, there is nothing in the standing orders that allows you or any other chair to speak.
Yeah,
And
that's
if that-
what I'm asking. Like there is
That's what he's asking.
there is explanation, a clear explanation that a chairman can vote. But is there any explanation of any rule that chairman can participate in debates? That's what I'm asking.
There's no rule definitely that says the chairman can't.
No, there isn't.
So in the interest of time, because we've got a part 2, not part 2, but we've got a confidential matter to deal with. I'll leave it to the town clerk. A chairman of all committees can always speak in a debate. I think it is an interesting question, but it would be fly in the face of all other meetings that you ever have. But anyway, I'll ask Deborah to get back to you on a formal answer. Yeah. And thank you for your forbearance there. Councillor McCann, please, can you have a quick one?
Thank you. Yeah. A future item I would like is for us to discuss what is the protocol for allowing staff to be furloughed and what regulations do we have currently that allow officers to make that decision. Do you understand what I'm saying, Chair?
Yeah. It's a question for the town clerk because I don't know the rules.
No, I'm sorry, it's not a question. It's not a question.
Oh, sorry.
It's a future agenda item, Chair.
Yes, it is for the town clerk to add. Sorry, apologies.
This council needs a process and a system where the council makes a decision. Sorry, I missed that. Sorry. Is that agreed, Chair, that that be a future item?
Would that not be the personnel committee?
Well, I think that's a far more appropriate.
Sorry, Chair, we're talking about P&R. If you don't have a strategy about your resources, who else is going to decide? It's the biggest committee we have here apart from the full council. It really should be a strategy and a policy that this organisation makes. Wouldn't you agree, Chair?
So the way forward, and it's an S&R, by the way, not P&R. You're in the wrong meeting.
Yes, yeah, sorry.
The town clerk puts together a proposal, bearing in mind that she's got limited time. That proposal will then go to the personnel subcommittee for discussion to bring it to here. That is the process we should follow. The personnel subcommittee has got people with good HR credentials. Right, so thank you very much for that. I'm now moving to the very last item, which we'll get in just before 10 o'clock, I hope. I've got to read something. Right, so I'm going to put a motion without notice to resolve that in view of the confidential nature of the business about to be transacted in relation to legal matters, it is advisable in the public interest that the public and press are temporarily excluded, and they are asked to withdraw for item 17 on the agenda. There is nobody attendees, so
We
it's
must
dead.
stop the recording.
Yeah,
or
I just need to stop the live stream if that's
Okay, we need to first do the vote. All those in favour, please show, raise your hand. Okay, do you need to wave your hand? Yep. Okay, yep. All those against? All, one, okay, Councillor Nacker is against.
Okay.
Any abstentions?